If you want to hear what I thought of the Smashbox brushes and the set of 5 QUO brushes, then stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène with another video, and today we're talking brushes. And it's been a while since I told you I was going to be using 2 sets of brushes, and I have definitely used them, well, most of the brushes anyway. I'll explain that in a bit, but I am ready to report back. Let's start with these 5 QUO brushes. I can tell you that this one I did not really use. I used a couple of times to just brush specks off my face, but that's about it. I do really enjoy this magnetic base. If you have a chance to get magnetic brushes that are good quality, I would highly recommend it because you don't have any damage to the brush heads, and I really appreciate that. The brushes that I really used quite a bit are the smallest 2 and the top 2. I really won't talk about the one in the middle because I don't use brushes for foundation. I use my fingers. So let's talk about these guys. This has been my powder brush for a while now, since I said I was going to be testing these out. I really enjoy this to use for setting powder and finishing powder. Very nice. I don't use it for any other purpose, but it does a very good job. It's very soft and does the job really well. So I have no complaints. It's very big, and like I said, does a good job. It compares to my other brush, and actually I would say I like it better than the standard powder brush I use, which, let me show you, which ironically is another QUO brush, but I think you can see how the diameter is quite different. And so this is going to be my default powder brush from now on, and this is going to be my backup when this one is getting cleaned. So yeah, and I do really appreciate, like I said, the magnetic base. So it's the diameter of the brush, the fluffiness. This one's also not as soft as this one. So by far, this QUO brush is my preference. Next up is that other fluffy brush, and it looks like this. And I've been using it for my bronzer. So I'm bronzing the top of my forehead, right in the hollow right here of under my cheekbone for contour powder or bronzer. And yeah, that's it. I was going to say more, but no, that would be it for this brush. And again, it is very soft, and these are the softest brushes that I've used so far, and I'm really impressed by. QUO brushes in general are pretty good, and I was impressed because this was a holiday set, and it's very, like I said, it's very good. And the last 2 brushes, I think this is a concealer brush based on the size and shape, but I've been using it to apply eyeshadow on the outer lid to deepen up the look of a deeper shadow on the outer lid, and it works just fine that way. So that's how I've been using it, and I enjoy it. I thought the bristles might be a little bit too slippery for that, but just because of the taper, it seems to work. So, and maybe that's what it is meant for. I just at first thought it might be a bit different, but I enjoy it and have used it quite a bit, although it's not my favorite. My favorite one for that application is in the Smashbox set, which we'll get to in a bit. Oh, and I meant to say that this is my usual bronzer brush that I keep, see how it fluffs out, that I keep always in the sleeve so it doesn't get too wide. This was my go-to bronzer brush, and now it is relegated to backup for this new brush that I just showed you. And finally, in the little guys, is this one. This is the last one of the 5 magnetic brushes, and I bet you this is a lip brush, but I actually use the edge to use powder shadow to line my lower lash line, and it works really well for that. I have enough lip brushes to last me a lifetime, so I was happy to be able to have a different use for it. And this one, unlike the previous one I just showed you, it's pretty much slick all the way, which is why it makes me think that it's for cream products. But the tip is rough enough to give me a very precise line if that's what I want from eyeshadow, and the eyeshadow doesn't go all over the place. So I'm pretty happy with the use for that one, and I have used it repeatedly for that purpose. So that's it for these 5, and so let's go on to the Smashbox brushes. Now, I mentioned when I introed this testing out the brushes video that there were 15 in here and that I was going to have probably some challenges in using all of them just because there are some that I would not use for the given application. But I have used most of them. So I think this is going to be okay as far as giving you a view of what, if you have access to a bundle of Smashbox brushes, how they perform. So let's just talk overall about the kit. So this was a kit of 15 brushes with this brush holder. And let me show you exactly what it looks like. So it snaps in, you see the snaps on the side? It snaps in and goes on top. So it's a very nice set for travel, although I did put this top on once and somehow a brush got stuck and I ended up kind of mangling, I managed to fix it, but mangling the lip brush here. So if you do have or plan on getting something that has a cylinder that snaps, you may want to be really, really careful when you do snap it shut that there's no brush that's getting pinched in any way, shape, or form, because that kind of defeats the purpose of protecting them in the first place, right? But I love this. I'm guessing it's pleather, but it's very luxe and Smashbox colors, and it matches the brushes. I mean, my matchy self is very happy with the aesthetics of this set and the fact that all the brushes are very much copy each other, which is great. So I think I'm going to go from biggest to smallest brushes, and I do want to eliminate a few brushes right off the get-go. I did not use this one. I'm going to get into lashes later on this year, and I know that I will use this brush. I'm much more likely to use this brush at some point in the future, but right now I just didn't really use it. I did use the spoolie side, but that's about it. So these two brushes I'm going to put aside. Okay, let's talk about biggest to smallest. This has been my blush brush for the last, well, since the last video was made of me introducing these, and I really like the shape of it, and I do think it's a blush brush, is it? Buildable cheek, yes, blush brush. I really like the shape. It's kind of got this almost pyramidal top, and it fits the cheek perfectly, and I'm really enjoying using it. And it has two, I mentioned this, don't know where to put the brushes. I mentioned this in the intro that it has two settings for how to use, so you get a stronger application close up and a lighter application when you use the end. I kind of like that. I'm not used to seeing that in a brush, but I will definitely continue to use this cheek brush for sure. And this next one is an angled powder brush. And it is very soft, and I didn't mention the cheek brushes is quite soft. Not as soft as the QUO brushes, but it's pretty soft. And this one is the angled powder brush, and it really is quite nice. It has the density almost of that really big QUO brush that I showed you earlier, at least kind of at the top. It's more dense down here and less dense up here. Here it has that same feel as one of those big rounded powder brushes. I have to admit that because I was also testing those powder brushes, the bronzer and the powder brush, general powder brush from QUO, that I used this one mostly to wipe off any kind of fallout that I had, because it was so light that it wouldn't blend the eyeshadow or any other pigment that I had on my face that shouldn't be there. It was very nice to just wipe off. And so anytime I had little mascara flakes or eyeshadow that fall out, I would just brush it off with this, and it did a really good job for that, and I'll probably continue to use it for that purpose. And this one is a blurring concealer, and I do not use brushes to apply or help to set my concealer. So this brush ended up being my problem fixer on the edges here when I ended up getting with eyeshadow where I did not want it, or eyeshadow excessively high on the brow bone. I used it to buff it out, and it worked pretty well for that purpose, even though that is absolutely not what the brush is for. It did a good job. And because it wasn't a brush that I knew that I would mix up and reuse on the eye look, it definitely ended up only being for cleanup purposes, and I thought it worked okay. Now I have two brushes that I used for highlighter, and this fan brush I have three fan brushes. This has now become my favorite. and I use it on the cheek for my highlighter, on the bridge of my nose, on the Cupid's bow. It works really well. And nothing much more to say about it. It's the aesthetics of the brush is very nice. It's very sleek and comfortable in the hand. It works great. And because it's not fanned out too wide, it doesn't get messed up on the sides by the other brushes. And that's what I find is a concern for me for my other couple of fan brushes. They splay out too big and they get messed up. This one hasn't, and I use it daily. And this is the other highlighter brush, and it's called the Precise Highlighting, and I agree with that, Precise Highlighting. I used it twice with highlighters that don't really need the precise application. Glittery highlighters are more what you need to use this brush with, and I haven't yet, although it's going to be in my future. And when I use, for example, the Anastasia Aurora palette or the Cliona Cosmetics highlighters, if I'm using those on my cheek, I'm probably going to be using this brush for that application. It works a lot better with highlighters that would be too much in your face if you don't quite get it right, especially any highlighters, like I said, with glitter in them. This will be the brush to use. I just haven't been wearing those as of yet. I was using a lot of colorful eyeshadow, and sometimes I find that really, really colorful looks and a colorful highlighter is just too much. So it's in the wings, but I appreciate the fact that I have a precision highlighting brush in my toolkit. This buildable concealer brush I did not use for concealer, but you will see it's a little bit pink. And I did use it for some cleanup work or edge work because it's quite thin in applying eyeshadow. And I'll probably just continue to do that. It's kind of nice as a secondary brush to use. I did use it this morning to do my brow bone color, and it works nicely for that because it doesn't pick up too much product. And so even though it's a concealer brush, I'm using it for eyeshadow because, again, to get into a small area, you don't need a whole lot of powder, and this brush just doesn't pick up a lot. So that's great. I'll keep using it for that. This brush you may have seen me get annoyed with. This one is called the Contour Shadow Brush. And I had no blender, crease blender brushes in this particular set of 15, and I was trying to use this one sideways to get into the crease and do the crease work. Not great. If I'm trying to do more precise crease work, I can use it this way and get in there, but sideways it would just, inner corner here, not inner corner, but inner lid, outer lid, it was just giving me a band of nonsense. And even trying to rotate it as I was going, it just didn't work. So I'm not a big fan of this brush, and I'm only not a big fan of it, I think, because I was using it wishing it was giving me the results of a different brush. And that's kind of not fair. So I think that I would like to use it in conjunction with a regular crease brush and see how it can perform. But for now, it's kind of on my naughty list, and mostly it's my fault, but that's where it stands right now. And let's get this one out of the way. This is a liner brush that I did not use. It's quite fluffy for a liner brush, but I think that as soon as you have liner on it, you can kind of flatten it out and do a good job. But I haven't had a need to use it. I haven't really been using pot liners recently. And so it's just going to wait until I get back into a pot liner phase, because right now I've really been focusing on my liner pencils, and so yeah, I didn't have a reason to use this one, at least for now. And it's called the Arched Liner Brush, by the way. Another brush that I only used once, but I did use it to make sure to try it out, and I liked it, was the Lip Liner Brush. And it works nicely. I do like this domed shape at the end, and it's just called a lip brush. Worked fine, can see myself using it again, although I don't use lip brushes a whole lot. I feel like I'm saving some of my favorites for last. I'm down to the last 4. Let's see, which one do I talk about more? Right away. One it just works really well, and I'll keep using it, and it is the angled brush. And I use it, I think it says brow here. Yeah, Precise Brow and Liner. I use this one for my brows primarily, but definitely would not hesitate to use it as a liner as well. There's a liner brush that is a Smashbox brush in the Smashbox Shape Matters palette that I'm using right now for liners, and so I didn't need to use this one for as an eyeliner, but for a brow brush, it works really, really well. You can make, it's very thin when it's all tapered there, and so you can mimic basically brow hairs, and that's, I love that about that brush. It's very, very thin and does a good job when applying a pomade kind of a brow product. I love the density of this brush. It's called the Full Coverage Shadow Brush, and it does not lie. It's very, very dense, and I used it for two purposes. I used it to pack on eyeshadow mostly on the outer lid, and also as almost like a smudger brush for lower lash line, and I really, really enjoyed using this brush. It is now my favorite for outer lid. And that's saying a lot because I have some brushes that I really like. And for corner detail work, and this is called the Multitasker Detail Brush, it does not lie. It has a very fine point, so you can do some detail work with that fine point, and it also has 3 flat edges, and so it can behave like a wider brush can. And so for inner lid work, or into the crease, something fine into the crease, it does a fantastic job. This is one of my top 3 brushes in this set of 15. It's so, so good. And again, another brush that I really, really am enjoying is this Detail Smudger brush. And this one is the Precise Smudger. It has made me very, very comfortable using lots of different colors on the lower lash line because I have a lot of control with it. If I want a very fine line, I go sideways with it. And then if I want to get a little bit wider, I just angle the brush out to how wide I want to go on the lower lash line. And it's not failed me yet. It has always given me the look that I was looking for when I used it with some intense color. And so it's one of my favorite brushes out of this kit. An honorable mention, but it was not part of this 15, is this little angled brush that I got with the contour kit, the 3-pan contour kit from Smashbox. The brush came with the kit, and I use this to contour my nose every day, and I really, really enjoyed this brush. If you're curious to know what other brushes I felt the need to use to complement the 15, it is these 3. Very fluffy crease brush from QUO. It's called the Crease Shadow Brush. Very, very fluffy. So it's nice for a transition color. A less fluffy crease brush from Sephora, which is from one of those 5 brush kits. It's fine. And then this beautiful angled brush that I absolutely love from that same kit. An angled brush is an unsung hero of the eyeshadow application game. I think everyone should have at least one angled brush in their kit because it's fantastic. If you don't go for an angled brush, if you can find something like that Multitasker brush I showed you, I would also highly recommend that. Well, that's it for my review of these 20 brushes. I do really appreciate the value of the 2 kits that I bought. I think that I got value for my money, and I do look forward to using these brushes for a long, long time to come. Hopefully you found some information you can apply to your own brush collection or future purchases. I would love to hear what you think of these brushes in the comments below. I do thank you for watching. I appreciate it every time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.